Welcome to day one of EWTN News live coverage of Pope Benedict XVI's apostolic journey to Mexico and later Cuba. I'm Raymond Arroyo, joined on set by Monsignor Bert Diaz. He's a priest of the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas, and the former president of the National Association of Hispanic Priests. Monsignore, thanks for being with us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here
Great
with
to
you.
have you. No, we're going to have some fun. There's a lot to get into and much to explore. Are we on this camera? I don't know. They're here, they're there. The Pope arrived in Mexico on Friday, but before touching down at Silao International Airport in Guanajuato, where we'll see him in a moment, he gave a press conference on the plane. I want to share this with you because he made a few headlines before he ever touched down in Mexico. Here's the Pope en route. Here's what he had to say. He spoke about communism. In it, he said, "Today it is evident that Marxist ideology, in the way it is consumed, or was consumed rather, no longer corresponds to reality. This way, we can no longer respond and build a society. New models must be found with patience and in a constructive way. In this process, which calls for patience, but also much decisiveness, we want to help in a spirit of dialogue to avoid traumas and to help move towards a society that is fraternal and just, which is what we desire for the whole world. We want to collaborate in this direction." Now, Monsignor, this was clearly a question about Cuba and the communism that has dominated there for more than 50 years now under Fidel Castro and his brother Raul.
Mm-hmm.
It seems the church is trying to position itself as a power broker in Cuba, an institution that can point the way forward, as it has in Europe and in other places we've seen communism.
I would think it'd be more a power broker of peace, to truly instill a message of peace and a message of prayer that the people of Cuba will find liberty and freedom and an expression of that in a different way than they have now.
And we'll be seeing that in the coming days. That is religious freedom tends to be a theme we see running through this entire visit, both in Mexico and Cuba. In Mexico, in the 20s, they had a terrible repression and persecution of the church there. The Pope will no doubt reference that. I want to move on to something he did talk about before his Mexican touchdown, and he talked about drug violence in Mexico. He said this: "We know very well about the beauty of Mexico, but also this huge problem of drug trafficking and violence. Certainly there's a great responsibility of the Catholic Church in the country, which is made up of 80% Catholics. We must do everything we can against this evil that is destructive against humanity and our youth." And again, he keeps referencing, we heard it when he touched down, I'll get into that in a moment, this notion that this is a moral failing. It's more than just a governmental problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's a symptom of a moral failing that's there's no one person, no one entity to blame, but it's a general problem of society that we have. It's got ramifications in everything from the persons who use drugs to the persons who sell drugs. And he mentioned the idolatry of money as being the thriving force that we need to really form our conscience through faith and reason to be able to find ways to dispel this violence that is rampant throughout Mexico right now, especially in the border areas where I live.
Yeah, you're right. You're right there.
It's really sad to see that. It's usually among the cartel leaders themselves, but it spills over to the communities. People are afraid. Tourists are afraid to go to Mexico. It's a country that's in siege by fear of
47,000 people killed in drug violence in Mexico, mostly in the northern states there along the U.S. border. It's and again, this is part of the drug trade. They're obviously trucking this stuff and bringing it into the United States.
And sadly, they also target individuals, immigrants who come from other countries in Central America or South America that are trying to come across the United States, and they're kidnapping those people and using them to transport drugs and to help fight their wars. And so it's a really sad situation, and it points to a serious problem that we, as a society, need to really look at carefully.
It's very interesting. When the Pope arrived, he did have this sense that the drug war is, and again, he talked about it in moral terms. He also comes in the middle of a presidential election. In July, there's going to be a major presidential election. Calderon, the president of Mexico, Felipe Calderon, whom the Pope just met with a little while ago. We didn't have coverage of that. They're not covering that event. But obviously there is a political advantage here for Calderon as well, because to be seen with the Pope, his PAN party is a conservative Catholic party. This is no doubt a good moment for Calderon.
Yes, it is. But we must say that, of course, the Vatican has come out and said very specifically that this was not timed to be this way. That it just happened to be that the Pope's calendar was able, he was able to come at this point in time.
Yeah, he had a moment here.
He had a moment here in the calendar to be there and to make this visit. So, I mean, it coincides, but at the same time,
it's an advantage, but it wasn't a planned one on the part of the Pope,
right,
certainly.
correct.
And we want to tell you, we are awaiting the Pope's arrival in Guanajuato. He is going to be at a large square, and at that in a moment, he'll be blessing children in Peace Square. So this is going to be a beautiful event. It's one of the first major events of this trip. We'll be bringing all of that to you in a moment. But I want to go back to his arrival yesterday. He arrived at the airport. He was met there by President Felipe Calderon, the president of Mexico. And in his remarks, he spoke about the fundamental right to religious freedom and expressed solidarity with victims of violence. Here you see the Pope coming down onto the tarmac. And you notice he walked down by himself. There was some headlines made because for the first time he used his cane as he was walking. And the Vatican says this is just for a little more security. He likes to have it there. But it was a beautiful welcoming. The mariachis were singing and the crowds were enthusiastic. And I think people were surprised at the warm reception he got, because in the days leading up, there weren't too many people. The campgrounds were empty, and they thought, oh, well, he's not John Paul II.
Right.
He seems to have confounded those expectations.
Sure, and the beauty of the fact that he had such a warm reception was very remarkable yesterday as he touched ground in Mexico the first time in his papacy, since he became Pope in 2005. So
John Paul made 5 visits here. Right. In fact, you could almost say he made 6, because a vial of his blood, a relic of John Paul II, has been touring through Mexico. Apparently 91 days of travel, 27 million people saw this relic. So even in death, John Paul II is a lively presence here in Mexico.
Very beloved, yes. Yeah. That's why he's John Paul the Great.
Yeah, it's amazing. So now in a moment we're going to see Benedict the Great, but I want to share with you, and we'll put up some video of the Pope's arrival and his opening address. We couldn't bring this to you live when it happened, but here are the big pullouts. One, this theme of religious liberty. He said, I come as a pilgrim of faith, of hope, and of love. I wish to confirm those who believe in Christ and in their faith by strengthening and encouraging them to revitalize their faith by listening to the Word of God, celebrating the sacraments, living coherently. In this way, they will be able to share their faith with others as missionaries to their brothers and sisters and to act as a leaven in society, contributing to a respectful and peaceful coexistence based on the incomparable dignity of every human being, created by God, which no one has a right to forget or disregard. This dignity is expressed especially in the fundamental right to freedom of religion in its full meaning and integrity. Now, what is he referencing here? Why is he making this statement in Mexico?
Well, primarily as a vicar of Christ, he comes to bring the gospel message. And the gospel message is a free message for all peoples, particularly in Mexico, that has gone through a very difficult period of suppression of religious liberty in the early 1900s, as political rivalries happened. But at the same time, he comes to reinforce the faith of the people that has been there for centuries in a country that's so faithful to Christ.
Because we think of Mexico as being this uber faithful place, a place where faith just oozes out of people. You see it, I mean, not only in the expressions, but in the devotion. When people are walking for miles on their knees to go to the shrine of Guadalupe. The other thing, and I had some emails earlier about this, why isn't the Pope going to Mexico City? We want to see him at the Guadalupe shrine. Well, there's a very good reason for that. It's a medical question. Pope Benedict, I think, wanted to go to Guadalupe. The altitude is so high, his doctors suggested that this may not be a trip he would want to make, and So they discouraged him from doing it, and he
But it
acted on
happens
doctor's
to be
orders.
that tomorrow he will have mass at the Cerro del Jubilete, which is geographically the center of Mexico.
Yeah.
So he's at the like we would call the heartland.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
the heartland of Mexico, right
And it's
there.
also the center, and we're going to take you there in a moment to this state, which is right in the middle of Mexico. It is also Guanajuato. It is also the scene of that Cristeros rebellion. There's this new movie. We just had Andy Garcia on the show the other night. It's a movie called For Greater Glory, and it's about the Cristero movement and a real uprising, a Catholic uprising of revolutionaries who took on the government when there was laws against practicing religion, very anti-clerical. And Mexico is really still grappling and coming out of that period,
It
even
is.
all these
It
decades
is.
later.
It's still slowly coming out of it, and there's still some
Resistance.
and there's still a lot of things that need to be done to help religious liberty continue to grow in Mexico.
And we're awaiting first video of this meeting, but in moments we'll take you to Peace Square, which is just adjacent to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guanajuato. I've got to get that right. And the Pope will be there meeting with thousands of children and young people, blessing them. As you know, any of you who've watched EWTN's live coverage of these events, every Pope makes it his business to meet with the young people, children, so that the Pope brings a particular message to them. John Paul really made this a hallmark of his papal visits, gambling, if you will, or it was part of his gambit, I think, to reach out to the young. And he knew he could reach them in a way that perhaps he couldn't reach the generations in between himself and that younger generation. And look how it's paid off in vocations, in seminarians. I mean, we're really seeing the fruits of the John Paul generation now.
That's true, and many of the children were named John Paul.
Yeah, yeah.
We have two priests in our diocese whose name John Paul in honor of John Paul. They were born around the time that the Pope came for the first time to Mexico. So that was a common name for people to name their children, an honor to name them John Paul.
We are getting some very fuzzy, I'll use that term, that's a technical term, very fuzzy, online video of the motorcade coming. You can take a peek at it now, and look at the people, how deep these crowds are. This is all along the route. Everyone expected that this would be a lower key event. As it turns out, people have greeted him throughout his stay here. In fact, they're camping out overnight at the Mass site for tomorrow morning's Mass. They're already there. Hundreds of thousands of people, I'm told, are already there. So, you know, when he arrived, there were people 6 deep all along the route. And this has been happening. Look, they're throwing flowers. They're throwing the flags out to the car, toward the car. And he's gotten a rousing and warm welcome here. And this is a real event and a moment for the people of Mexico and for Catholics in this region, who constitute 94%, incidentally, of the population in this most Catholic state in the middle of Mexico. So I think it's to be expected that we would see this sort of reaction. But people weren't so sure after John Paul II, Monsignor, if they'd see this. But apparently, the critics have been foiled again.
That's right.
And this is EWTN's live coverage of Pope Benedict in Mexico. We're awaiting his arrival. You see the papal caravan making its way toward Peace Square, where he will be blessing thousands of young people. And by the way, we want you to be part of this visit. It's an interactive moment, so why not? We're at papalvisit@ewtn.com. papalvisit@ewtn.com. So send us your emails if you have any questions. We'll try to answer them. And you see the Pope getting closer here. And I think this is first video we're getting now. Yeah, this is first video. It looked a little clearer. We're going to take a very quick break, but when we return, live coverage of Pope Benedict in Mexico. You won't want to miss a moment of it. Stay right there. We'll be back. Welcome back to EWTN News live coverage of Pope Benedict XVI in Mexico, and later, Cuba. I'm Raymond Arroyo, joined on set by Monsignor Bert Diaz of the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas. In a few moments, we'll take you live to Peace Square, adjacent to the Basilica of Our Lady of Guanajuato, for Pope Benedict's meeting with children and young people. It's sure to be one of those special events in this visit. So stay right there. We will bring it to you live as it happens. And we want you to be part of the coverage. If you have a question, drop us an email. We're at papalvisit@ewtn.com. Monsignor, your thoughts on what this visit means at this moment. And I want you to put it in context. We're getting some bleed over, guys, from this audio here. You may want to rein that in. Your thoughts on putting this in context in much the way John Paul did 14 years ago. When he came to Cuba, it was a visit to the Americas, and he called it a pilgrimage to America. And that was north, south, central, the whole continent. Does this trip fit into that same rubric in your mind?
I think it does, but more particularly, the theme that's prevalent is the journey of peace. And the Holy Father begins his journey of peace with the future of Mexico, the future of Catholicism, our young people. And that's a thrust of evangelization that's so important to instill the Christian values upon our youth. So as the Vicar of Christ, he goes to bring a message of peace at Peace Square to those children who are the future of their country, the future leaders, the future Christians, Catholics that will be truly important for their country and for the world, each one of them.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, the focus. I think that's very, very, very beautiful that he goes, and his first meeting today is with the children in a particular way, in a public way, because that is so important. Jesus emphasizes the little children and as so important, and the Holy Father, as the Vicar of Christ, brings that message first to them.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, as a father, and as a Vicar of Christ, as the representative of Christ on earth. So it's a beautiful expression of that.
Yeah, the journey of hope, he called it. This is a journey of hope.
The journey of hope, that's right.
This is a pastoral mission, which, in so many ways we look at this, and the secular media looks at this as a political. They look at it through a political
That's
rubric,
right.
which
No.
I think
No.
is reductive.
And that's what I meant to say, is a journey of hope for the children, to instill in them the value of peace and in Peace Square. But I mean, it is a journey of hope, a hope of transforming the world with the gospel message, with the good news of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I was flipping through the other day, it being Lent, some of the writings of my friend Father Richard John Newhouse, and he often talked about the church offering a foundational message, that it's proposing a better way to live. And I think that's what we're going to see here from the Pope. He sees the terrible problems, and he honestly confronts them. And I'm sure we'll hear more of them tonight. He's talked about the violence. He's talked about the need for religious freedom. And Felipe Calderon, the president of Mexico, whom he met with moments ago, in fact, his motorcade is on its way from that meeting to this Peace Square to meet with the children. Calderon has proposed a constitutional amendment that would allow the church greater freedom and public expression of faith without the need to get permission from the government. This is pretty major.
That's major because of all the the problems in the past with the suppression of religious liberty in Mexico. I mean, that's a really big step for the president to be bold enough to bring this to the forefront in a country where it's always been a very serious, sensitive issue, that it was against the law for any cleric to speak about politics or to even be seen in public in a public demonstration type of way of their faith.
Yeah, it makes these images, and we'll show you some images. This is John Paul, listen to me. I'm having a flashback here to 1998. This is Pope Benedict making his way in the Pope Mobile. Now this is from yesterday. Look at the crowds and the expression here. I wish we had not sound to this. There is nothing like being in a crowd, particularly amid Mexican people when the Pope shows up. They are so effusive in their affection and love in a way that I think is very different from any other people, any other nation. They're polite and they love the Pope, but there's nothing quite like this sort of expression. the flowers laid out, and the mariachis,
yes.
and the
Yeah.
banners, and it's really something to see.
Yeah, the Mexican people are very expressive.
Mm-hmm.
It's an expressive culture, and they express their affection, their love, and their faith in a very particular way,
Mm-hmm.
and in a very warm way, in a very welcoming way to the Holy Father with what they have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's beautiful to see that as he was arriving to
Sure.
Mexico.
And we should tell people a bit more about this Cristeros rebellion. This is a part of history that really is lost on so many people in the United States. They simply have no frame of reference. They didn't realize this even happened in the hemisphere. I always think of Graham Greene's The Power and the Glory, his majestic work that captures this time period. In the personage of a very broken little priest who brings grace and hope to people, even in his own brokenness. Tell us a little bit about that rebellion and the marks it's left on Mexico.
Well, the rebellion was primarily a desire to rid Mexico of any Catholicism whatsoever. And there was a thrust to do that by the president of Mexico at that time, who bombed the image of Christ the King, the first image that was there in the Sierra del Jubilete, and it was rebuilt. But the more he suppressed, the more the people held firm of their faith, and many people were martyred. And as you will see in the movie, I assume a little bit of the history of that. But it was Mexico has the people from Mexico have had to suffer a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And they continue to suffer a lot.
Yeah.
There's a lot of poverty, and but with the poverty, there's a lot of faith also in the people, and they're firm in their faith, and they're proud of their faith, and they protect their faith that comes to them in a very beautiful and particular way through the intercession of the Our Lady of Guadalupe, who is the patroness of the Americas, but in particular way a symbol of the love of God to his people in the Virgin Mary, and her saying yes to the Lord, and in her bringing forth Christ.
And this is
to
a
the
real
world.
connection that Pope Benedict will strike, no doubt, as his predecessor did, a connection with the Mexican people in his love of Our Lady, in his devotion to the Mother of God. And I'm sure we'll see that in probably in the event we're about to see, since it takes place right there in front of a statue that has enormous significance, which we'll get into, and the Mass tomorrow as well. So tell me a moment about your thoughts, and we're getting some emails. They're asking here, how do you think the visit to Cuba will go? People are already looking ahead. There's a 2-day visit here to Mexico and then a 2-day visit to Cuba. We will bring it to you live in its entirety, all the major events. You can count on us throughout the coming days through Wednesday. Your thoughts on what his impact might be there on the island of Cuba?
I think everybody's going to be very pleasantly surprised at the warm reception he will receive in Cuba too, because the people of Cuba are also a very faith-filled people. They're people who have also suffered a lot in their own way. But I think the Pope goes to Cuba, with a message of hope, a hope of a new world that is possible if they hold on to their Christian values, and he goes to bring the good news. And hopefully the good news of Jesus Christ will transform the hearts of those in leadership to be able to offer a new, vibrant opportunity, a new direction for the people of Cuba that's peaceful and that's prosperous and that's going to engage Cuba with the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, the Church is taking also the long view on Cuba. When John Paul went in 1998, people, I think, expected instantaneous, the Castro regime would fall and suddenly freedom would flourish and everybody would be saying Mass out there in front of their churches. It didn't happen that way. But the Church took the long view. This regime, as has happened throughout history, as we've seen throughout Europe, the weight of it, the injustice of it, begins to fray and fall and tumble of its own weight. And you have to have someone there to pick up the pieces.
Pick up the pieces.
I think the Church is trying to position itself as an institution that is there with not only the historical knowledge but the faith to pick up the pieces for the people and give them a way forward that is better than what they've been living through.
Exactly, and it is through their faith that they will be able to conquer any kind of dangerous, uprisings that could happen if the regime were ever to fall. But I think, that's so important to focus on how the church can help the people of Cuba move forward.
People are emailing us now. I want to say hi to our friends. We have John writing from London, and we thank you. Jude's watching the coverage and said thank you for covering this. We're watching from the UK, so I wanted to shout out to you. And we have a question. This comes from, who's writing this? They don't have their name. How come the Pope is not riding in the Pope-mobile? Well, you see the motorcade making its way. The Pope doesn't always ride in the Pope-mobile. In fact, in Rome, as Monsignor, you could probably tell better than I, the Pope often travels in a black sedan, and as he moves about, it's easier, it's quicker, it's less obtrusive. And when you're going a long distance, as it appears this trip is, because we're running, about 13 minutes late here, which is uncommon for this very precise German Pope who stays right on track all the time, but he's obviously on other people's schedule here. So, but that's his car with the papal flags emblazoned on the front, the black sedan in the front of this motorcade. Pope Benedict is making his way to Peace Square, where he'll and we're getting very close. I see the red carpet here, so any moment he'll be stepping out and making his way to. Wow! Look at the aerial shot of all the folks here.
Yeah, and I think the Pope-mobile is used only, particularly when he's in within the crowds.
Yep. Oh, look, he's actually boarding the Pope-mobile.
Okay. There you
so,
go.
Thank
That's
goodness we
a
got
slower
that
vehicle,
one right.
much more slower pace.
Yep.
Than the other vehicle. So that's.
So Pope Benedict is he's in that black sedan there. In a moment, he'll step out, and it looks like he'll greet the crowd briefly, get in the Pope-mobile, and then make a circle around the plaza. So. These are moments that are always much looked forward to by the crowds, particularly in Mexico. And we're delighted to bring this to you live as it happens all around the world. And if you'd like to be part of the coverage, if you have a question, we're at papalvisit@ewtn.com. I'm Raymond Arroyo with Monsignor Bart Diaz from Brownsville. And I thank you for taking time away from the diocese. I know you're very busy because you're not only a parish priest, you're also the vicar of the diocese. So I know it's hard pulling you out, so I thank you for taking a few days to join us. And I know the audience is thankful. There's the First Lady of Mexico, I believe, greeting the Pope. And now, the Pope-mobile is standing by. We'll see if he actually gets in the Pope-mobile. He could very well bless the crowd and then board the Pope-mobile. Yeah, he's making his way to the Pope-mobile. The door is open. So he will no doubt be making his way around this Peace Plaza. And he's being greeted by officials here on a red carpet as he transfers. I didn't see a cane when he stepped out of the car there. This has been much discussed in the media of late. I don't know what's so extraordinary. I mean, you have a man who's almost 85 years old. Remember, Pope John Paul was already gone to his reward at this point. So the fact that Pope Benedict is still so, I think, so active is really amazing for a man of his age. We should also recall Pope John Paul II was in his 50s, early 50s, when he first came to Mexico. So, we often forget the memory clouds after all these years, and I have to admit mine does too, after 15 years here at EWTN covering these events. But it is delightful to see Pope Benedict and to bring it to so many people live with an event like this. This is, I think, at the very core of EWTN's mission, certainly to Mother Angelica. This was a major plank, an important plank of EWTN's work. Because the whole world can look in, the whole family of faith looks in, and they are unified around the Holy Father as he makes these pilgrimages that are obviously important and intended for a local church, but also have universal ramifications.
Correct. And ramifications for the Americas, I think, in a special way. For me as a Mexican American, it touches my heart to see the Pope in the Americas again. You know.
Well, yesterday when he was flying over, the EWTN radio was actually tracking the plane. You could watch where he was flying. And people, you know, I know different prayer groups and things were excited that, oh, he's right overhead. You know, he's over Oklahoma. He's over Texas. You know, so there was that excitement that he's in the hemisphere. He's here in the Americas, and we will see in a moment the beginning of this live event in Peace Square. And it's sure to be a beautiful one. Whenever the Pope meets with children, it's always something special.
Oh yes, I'm sure it'll be a very special event. Beautiful to see that the Pope engaging the future.
Yeah. Well, this is the hope of the church. It's the future of the church. And today, I mean, we've gotten an advance of some of his comments, and I'm not going to read them to you because that would be a no-no. But clearly, he speaks here about this notion of peace and passing it on and inculcating it in the young, and that's if you look at the people
running from one side to the other
after the Pope Mobile. Pope Benedict is in that Pope Mobile now, so our person from who wrote that question earlier, asking about where's the Pope Mobile? There it is. He's on board. And the crowds are gathering and chasing the Pope Mobile along the route. And I don't know quite how far we are here from the...
Looks like we're getting close to the square.
Yep.
You know.
This Keith writes from Houston. It's an interesting question. For Monsignor, how can a mass of 200,000 people be first kept safe and second, maintain the reverence of the Holy Mass with that many people? How do they distribute Holy Communion to that many people? It's a good question. It's going to be significantly more than 200,000.
Oh, absolutely.
Tomorrow. It's probably going to be upwards of 400,000 plus. So, but what's the answer to that question?
Just having the Holy Father celebrate the Mass together with hundreds of bishops and priests and thousands of people in itself gives particular reverence to the Mass. But communion, you have hundreds of priests there, so you'll have plenty of priests to distribute communion. And I'm sure it's going to be done in a very orderly and very dignified way. But just the presence of the Holy Father celebrating Mass at the feet of the Cerro del Jubilete, the geographical center of Mexico, is in itself a very reverent sign of, and I think it's so reverent to see that in an outdoor Mass, as the Father, as the Holy Father, to go with all the bishops, consecrate what is the bread and wine and becomes Christ for all who are there.
Yeah. No, you'd be amazed. I mean, we've been at events where there are 1 million people in attendance at these Masses, and there's a little tiny dot off in the horizon, and that's the Holy Father. Nonetheless, they're partaking and participating in the Mass in their way, and they sort of send out squadrons of people to go with little umbrellas, and they distribute throughout the entire crowd, and it's amazing. They reach to the very ends of the
What comes to my mind when I see that outdoor Masses from the Holy Fathers in the past is the multiplication of the loaves and the fishes.
Oh,
Jesus,
yes.
Being out with the crowds who were sitting by the grass.
Right.
And it seemed like it would never end. It was like a beautiful moment, feeding the people.
We are getting first video. This is Peace
Square,
Square, and look at it. It's all the tributaries leading into the square here are packed with people, all decked out in white and yellow. There are balloons, there's the flags, all the papal colors being yellow and white.
This is a very particular way of the expressiveness of the people from Mexico. They really are very proud of expressing their welcome by using the flowers and the colors of the person of dignity, who is, of course, the Holy Father, coming to to their city.
Oh, it's a
And so we're very
beautiful
proud.
tableau here, and you also have the people in their white T-shirts with the yellow scarves, so that it's not only the surrounding walls. And this is a beautiful little town here.
Oh, it is a beautiful. I've been there. It's just gorgeous.
Yeah, the colors pop, and it's got a real colonial feel. It's
Look at those
very
colors
quaint
there,
and
right
pretty.
there in the front of that.
Yeah, well, a
Beautiful.
moment ago they had the front of the church, and you saw the yellow. Look, there it is. I mean, it's eye-popping. You know, it's those
Oh,
rich
absolutely, yeah.
colors. Beautiful.
And even the tradition with the bells are ringing.
Yep.
The tradition too, as a priest gets ordained in the community, the people put flowers outside their doors as a priest comes out of the mass, his first mass, celebrating the fact that this man has been ordained a priest. So.
And you see the excitement there, and you can hear it at home. I can't hear the gnat sound, but you can. And you see the again, effusive joy of the people, the Pope Mobile making its way to this packed square, Peace Square, Peace Plaza, outside of the cathedral. And this is in Guanajuato, in the very heart of Mexico, at the geographic center.
León, Guanajuato.
But in some ways, it's also the spiritual center of the country as well, given all the troubles that went on here in the 20s, and how this area remains so today strongly Catholic. 94% Catholic population here. Look at the beautiful blues and beautiful colors of this town. So beautiful. Thank goodness it's a gray day, because it's sort of,
There's
you're not competing.
the cathedral that holds the image of Our Lady of Guanajuato, which is very historic in a particular way. It came from Spain, and it is said that in about 700.
Granada. It came from Granada.
Yes. When the Moors attacked and conquered Spain, it was hidden in a cave. And despite of the moisture and the water in the cave, nothing happened to the statue. And so this wooden statue was brought as a gift from the kings of Spain to Mexico, to Guanajuato, and it's been responsible for many a miracle, even as it was being brought to the city itself, the city center.
And for 450 years, it has remained
Correct.
here, this statue. And I guess it was buried for like 750 years in this cave, right?
And intact. No, it's
And it's a wooden
miracle.
statue. I'm sure we'll see footage of it as the coverage.
It's a miracle just to the fact that because it's wood, it didn't decay, it didn't deteriorate. So.
And this is EWTN's live continuing coverage of the Pope in Guanajuato, in the Peace Square outside the cathedral in León. You see the motorcade making its way here, the Pope Mobile, Benedict XVI, having a surprising, not surprising to me, but surprising I think to a lot of folks who imagined that he would get a rather blasé or passive welcome here because of the over-the-top expressions that were given to John Paul II. They thought, oh, Benedict couldn't compete, but really, throughout this pontificate, Benedict has been held to the standard, and he's either matched it or surpassed it, even in Rome.
Correct. This Holy Father brings his own gifts to the church in a very particular way, just like we all have our gifts to share, and he brings his gifts. And I think the focus for him is primarily a catechist. He is a catechist at heart. He's a teacher at heart, and so he focuses a lot of his papacy on the importance of teaching.
We should talk
faith.
about this, Monsignor. There's a letter here. This comes from an email, rather. This is from Michael in Lackawanna, New York, and he writes, do you think Pope Benedict will address the very aggressive proselytism of Mexico's Catholics by evangelical Protestants? There are several sects here that have been making aggressive moves and growing. The church in Mexico has done very little, and in some areas seemingly nothing at all, to combat the massive hemorrhaging of the church there. Michael from Lackawanna.
I think that's a good question, Michael. I think in a particular way, I don't think he's specifically going to address the proselytizing, but he's going to encourage what works better for people losing their faith is a deepening of faith and a learning more about your faith, a discovery through catechism and through education and through learning the importance of your faith, the history of the church, the importance of the values that the church brings, that the good news of Jesus Christ brings. So I think focusing on encouraging a stronger catechesis is a way to dispel this kind of proselytizing that goes on in Mexico.
And we are awaiting Pope Benedict's arrival here, and you see the excitement of this crowd in this splendid square in Guanajuato. It almost looks like something out of Europe.
It does. It's
this
a very
town square.
It's a very colonial city, a very proud city of their heritage and their Catholic faith, and so it is it's a beautiful square. I remember visiting there and how beautiful it was, and very colorful. You see all the expressive colors of the different buildings. It's very typical of see the blues and the yellows and that's very typical of the expression of the culture of Mexican
Well, you hear the
cities.
voices rising and the cell phone cameras are all out.
That square is packed.
Yeah.
It is full. I mean, it is incredible to see the amount of people that are there. It's beautiful to see. It's a beautiful welcoming for the Holy Father. I'm sure his heart is very grateful and he's very happy to see the welcoming that he's getting there as he comes to the center of the square there.
And people are asking if they're commenting that which is what I thought as well. For 85 years old, the Pope looks remarkably well and fit, and is still. I mean, to go down that staircase with the ease and the fleet quality of his steps.
That was
amazing. I can't get down those steps that fast. And that was pretty
amazing.
good.
Yeah.
And they're saying, he seems to have lost a lot of weight, but he can still get around very well. Does the Pope have any future foreign visits planned for the rest of the year? He does, in fact. He does have a few coming up in the fall and near the end of the year. Of course, he's presiding over the major synod on evangelization in October.
So he'll be busy with that for sure. But I'm sure he will have other trips. But they're probably not as frequent as John Paul II because of his age. I mean, he became Pope at a different age than John Paul
much
II.
younger. I mean, John Paul was in his early 50s when he became Pope, and this man became Pope on the threshold of 80, and he'll be 85 on the 16th of next month, and then Mother Angelica is going to be 89 on the 20th of next month.
That's great.
So
it's a blessing from God.
April is a big month, for a number of reasons, and we will naturally be covering all of the papal visits. If there's a papal visit, you can count on us to bring it to you live, and we'll do that. We're getting notes from Tipperary, John, asking that we remember a brother Brendan Scully, who is very ill and apparently not doing well in a hospice there, asking for prayers. So
Certainly,
we send those out. This is an interesting question from Annette. Why wouldn't the Pope visit the United States?
He did visit the United States.
That's right, in 2008.
2008.
But why not this time?
Why not this time? I think because I think his heart has always been to visit Latin America, and particularly Mexico. I mean, he's visited there as a cardinal before. He went with the Holy Father before, John Paul II. And so I think this was an opportunity for him to do this. And I think it's an important visit because I would say he's visiting us too in the United States because he's visiting the Americas, the continent, and we're very happy to have him in our continent, in the Americas, under the intercession and the shadow of Our Lady of Guadalupe, the patroness of the Americas.
Yeah.
So I think that in a special way is a blessing for all of us as a global community, especially a community in the continent.
And this theme of religious freedom that he has been sounding since his approach to this continent, and since he's landed, no doubt has ramifications for us in the United States, who are in the midst of a major battle over religious freedom, waged largely by the bishops here in the United States, the Catholic bishops, who they didn't invite this war. This is a war they've had to engage because the government seeks to restrict conscience. And indeed, Monday, oral arguments begin about President Obama's health care plan, and this will all be looked at. So I think the timing of the Pope's visit, that he's in this hemisphere at this moment, I think it could have a lot.
I think so
providentially, there could be more reverberations of this visit beyond Mexico and Cuba. So stay tuned. I think it's one of the reasons this visit is so exciting. No doubt he will speak to that situation. Maybe obliquely, maybe directly. We'll see.
Yes, I think you'll be surprised. He might speak to it.
Yeah, if I know anything about Pope Benedict after watching him all these years, he's very good at sort of dropping those very direct references when needed. Wow, look at this crowd. Oh, look, they're all in color-coded groups. Green, red, and blue, and yellow. They look like musical groups to serenade the Pope.
Wow, that is really packed. The square is really full of. Oh, that's beautiful to see all the children.
Yep.
There together. That's.
No, this is really a meeting with young people and children. Thousands and thousands of them have gathered in this Peace Square in Guanajuato.
And all these children will grow up. They will never forget this moment when they greet the Holy Father. This will stay with them for the rest of their lives. Mm-hmm. And so just by the mere fact that he engages the children in this very special way is something that's going to stay with them forever, and that's beautiful to see.
You know, I'm always struck when I watch these events, when I cover these events. It's the universal church coming to a local church. There is something so fantastic when you step back and think of that, you know, the leader of a global communion, the head of the Roman Catholic Church, with this lineage that ties right back to St. Peter the Apostle, coming to this town today, at this moment. And you always see it reflected in the faces of the people there. It is a moment that even television doesn't truly convey, because it is a spiritual atmosphere that is charged.
Correct.
Yeah. And for the people who've never been a part of this, it is one of those rare moments. And I encourage you, if you haven't been a part of such a thing, to do so at least once in your life. You know, we're a little spoiled in that, and I've really had a front row seat at so many of these spectacular moments in our history, whether it was John Paul in Cuba, whether it was the death of John Paul and then the election of Pope Benedict, which happened over my shoulder. I mean, to be witness to that and a part of it, you do get sort of swept up in the momentum of it, despite the difficulties and there's always the logistical hurdles and the crowds and you're fighting to get through security. But it's for moments like this that you wait for, and they're important historically and personally. Here's Pope Benedict XVI pulling into the square, the Pope Mobile, and the confetti is dropping from balconies on the approach to the piazza here. The cell phones are out, the banners are waving. And Pope Benedict has arrived here in Guanajuato, Mexico. Really the first major public event of this trip. People were asking, where are the Swiss guards? Well, those are his security, and some of the Swiss guards there you'll see on either side of the Pope Mobile. They don't wear those Medici costumes that people obviously crave, because they're saying, where are the colorful costumes, Raymond? Well, Harry, Harry is right. Oh, it wasn't Harry, it was someone else. Nathaniel asked that question earlier. We have another email here. This is, we're watching the papal trip to Mexico from New Jersey. This is Harry. My wife Miriam has touched the Holy Father on the TV screen and feeling spiritually enriched and comforted. May God bless the Holy Father.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's a very beautiful expression. Those are the expressions that really, warm your heart when you hear things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, look at the baby being. Oh, that's beautiful. The baby being taken to the Holy Father.
Look at that.
Oh, that's cute.
I'm going to let you listen to some of the natural ambiance because the screaming crowds and the bells going off in the distance, it really is something. So I'll let you listen to a little of this. This is EWTN's live coverage, and Raymond Arroyo, Monsignor Diaz, we are thrilled to be with you today. Give a listen. And there's the Holy Father blessing the crowds as he makes his way into Peace Square. Look at how happy he is. He seems overjoyed by this reception. And these are tight little alleyways. I mean, it almost looks like the French Quarter. It's these are old streets in the old quarter here. And I don't see barricades. No, they're barricades.
There's some barricades.
I do see them. I didn't see them earlier. Mm-hmm. In his approach to the square, there were no barricades. It was really something.
You can hear them saying, "Viva el Papa, Viva el Papa, long live the Pope," in the background. You can also hear the bells quarters. You can also hear the bells of the cathedral in the background too. Very beautiful. Very warm reception. Very beautiful.
Mm-hmm. I'm amazed the windows of the Pope Mobile are open too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, usually those side windows are up. Look at the people blowing him kisses, that man on the left. Beautiful arrival. This is how they're all supposed to look.
That's right. That's
Guanajuato, Mexico. We're pleased to bring this to you live in its entirety. Pope Benedict about to greet thousands of young people, and there they are, waiting for him in this Peace Square outside the cathedral. And they've been parked here for hours waiting for the Pope. Indeed, we're getting reports that there are thousands of people already in place for the Mass that will take place tomorrow morning.
Wow, look at the crowds.
Look at this.
That's beautiful.
Oh, they're serenading him. Listen.
Oh, yeah, they're serenading him. This is a song that's typical for anyone who's celebrating a birthday.
That's right.
And it's a special welcoming song that's very typical of the Mexican people.
My son has from the time he was a little tiny boy, he loved mariachis. And that song he learned before he could, just as he could talk. Ay, 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 canta y no llores. Yeah, it's a what's the name of the song though? Is it De Colores?
No,
it's
not De Colores. No,
Chris is telling me De Colores. What am I listening to the gringo for? I'm in big trouble, Chris. Playing. It's Canta y no llores, see? What is
I
the
think
song?
so. I think it's Canta y no llores. I'm not
Canta
sure.
y no
I don't remember the name of the song, but it's a very popular song.
Look at the crowd. Beautiful crowd there of young people. And they're all singing and serenading. We're going to hear this throughout the evening, there's no doubt. We saw a lot of those musical groups, young people in brightly colored shirts, each group in a different color. There's nothing like the excitement of youth. Look at this lady. Wow, you can still hear them. And they're on the steps of a building, and everyone has a guitar in their hand and is singing. There's got to be 200, 300 people there. So beautiful. Cielito lindo is
Cielito lindo,
the song.
my sky. You warm my heart. Don't cry, but be happy.
Mm-hmm. This is a little footage. Maybe this is happening now, or is this earlier, guys?
I think this is probably earlier.
Oh, this is live. So Felipe Calderon, the
guess
president of
Calderon is
Mexico,
there.
and the first lady greeting the Pope again. This is the second time they've met today. I think they were to meet earlier. There was supposed to be a courtesy visit, which is protocol. The Pope, we have to remember, is not only the head of a church and the head of a global communion, he is also the head of state, the Vatican City State. He's fulfilling that role in this courtesy meeting now with
And I would say this is
President
over and
Calderon.
above protocol, because the president of a country will greet the Pope, but to be with the Pope at the different functions, that's far and beyond his role. His role as president, and that's very special. That's very unprecedented. It's very remarkable to see that.
And you see here the papal entourage. I saw Cardinal Rivera of Mexico City there. There's Father Lombardi, the Jesuit who is the spokesman for the Pope there in the background. Earlier I saw Archbishop Harvey, the head of the papal household. So they are going. It appears the courtesy visit is taking place now. We had been informed that it was earlier. If that was live video, things are running very late. We're going to be here a while, ladies and gentlemen. Lots of interesting questions, and we'll have a little time here to get to all of them. There was a question about the White Ladies in Cuba. If the Pope will be meeting with the White Ladies. The White Ladies in Cuba are a dissident group. Many of them are related to political prisoners in Cuba, and they protest by having these marches, prayer processions really. They go to Mass, and they have asked for a meeting with the Pope. There are the White Ladies there. And it appears, there they are, they do this every week. They go and they march in protest. It's a peaceful protest for their relatives who are being held by the Castro regime in Cuba. They have asked to meet with the Pope. It doesn't appear that a meeting is going to be forthcoming, but I have to say, when I had friends of mine who were in the media who called me and said, why isn't he meeting? This is an outrage. John Paul II didn't meet with dissidents either. The church has done what it can, I think, behind the scenes, and they're in a very tough spot. They're trying to carve out some new freedoms here. They have been successful to some extent, but it's not obviously where I think either Cardinal Ortega in Havana or the Pope would like to see things, but it's where things are at the moment. But we'll see. That part of the trip is coming up and will be an exciting moment when the Pope lands in Cuba. But right now, he's in Mexico, in the very heart of Mexico, a region that is distinguished by the fact that 94% of the people here are Catholic. That's not the case throughout Mexico. People think of Mexico as a largely Catholic nation. It is, but the numbers have been dropping in recent years. It's about 84 to 80% Catholic now, which was not the case just a decade ago. What's happening there? Why are those numbers dropping?
I think in a lot of ways, like in any country, when there's religious freedom starting, you have other groups that come in and try and proselytize, and they primarily target the poor people in the areas that perhaps are neglected by the government or that have very little church presence. But even in those areas, I think, and in general, I think that's something that's unusual for Mexico. But at the same time, it's important to re-emphasize the urgency of really learning our faith and teaching our faith to our young people, to instilling the Christian values and to engaging them in learning about the fundamentals of our faith and the fundamentals of our religion. That's where a lot of people go astray, is if they don't really have a good grasp of the fundamentals of the church. And I think that that's important. And I think the Holy Father will encourage that, in not just in Mexico, but also with this new evangelization synod in Rome in October.
While the Pope continues this courtesy meeting with President Calderon, we are going to let you listen to some of the Nat sound. These musical groups are playing out in the plaza. I want you to hear some of it without our mouths palavering on. So we're going to take a little break away, but we're not going anywhere. You'll be able to hear what's happening in the plaza, and we will return to you momentarily. This is EWTN's live coverage of the Pope in Mexico. And we are thrilled to bring you this event from Guanajuato, Mexico. And you are seeing a packed Peace Square outside the cathedral in León. Absolutely beautiful. As night falls and dusk settles over the area here, some of the most lovely music you're hearing. People are standing on statues to get a glimpse of the Pope. They're up on fountains. They're packed into every nook and cranny of this square.
This is beautiful to see. It's just a beautiful expression.
And I love, these are all kids, by the way, playing. You know, you're hearing the music that you're hearing. It's young people in various little orchestral groups and choirs. So it's really interesting that, you know, you can imagine the hours and the days they've spent rehearsing for this moment. And except for the little girl slugging the water, they're all singing at the top of their lungs. It's really something.
It's probably hot. I think they said the temperature was a little hot today.
I'll bet.
In the upper 80s. So.
We're getting some very interesting emails, one of which I want to share with you here. There was a lady, I believe, who's writing. I will find this because it is such an important email. And one of them talks about the beautiful witness this is and a counter to so much of the negative news we hear out of Mexico about the drugs, about the violence, etc. To see this other side of the Mexican people that doesn't get covered, that doesn't get the attention that perhaps it deserves.
Correct. Yes. Well, I think that's so important to have good news, to bring a message of hope to a people that are struggling with fear for violence in many areas. Maybe not particularly in Guanajuato, but in other areas in the northern parts of Mexico, in the port cities, where there's a lot of sequestering and threats and people fearful for their lives at any given moment. So it's a beautiful thing. This is a very beautiful moment for Mexico and for Guanajuato.
This is interesting. This is from Jeffrey. He says, thanks for the wonderful coverage of Pope Benedict and his visit to Mexico and Cuba. I'm not of your faith. I'm a member of the Mormon Church, but I love and respect the Holy Father as a moral anchor in our society today and as someone that people of all faiths can look to for guidance. God bless you and your great work at EWT. And thank you, Jeffrey, for writing. Very nice.
That's very nice. Yeah, that's good to hear that from others who don't share our faith, but who are certainly excited, as all of us are, for this beautiful moment as the Pope is getting ready to address the children in Peace Square.
This is really something. I want you to listen to this because they've got 5 or 6 groups here. Now maybe it's one big orchestra, but they're all playing in unison or adding it. Listen to this. It's really amazing. And they're all young people. These are kids playing in amazing unison. I mean, I've heard some philharmonics that lost that up. That's beautiful. I mean, it's just beautiful. Dusk is settling here on Guanajuato, in Guanajuato, Mexico, Peace Square. And you see the excitement building. The Pope is still in a courtesy meeting with the President, Felipe Calderon, who is running for president again. There are elections in July. And he has gone really out of his way to make sure he is at this Pope's side, really for 2 days straight. He met the Pope at the airport. They're having a private meeting now. He'll no doubt see him off at the end. I mean, he really has been very present throughout this papal visit.
Yes.
And you know, very near where the Mass tomorrow will take place and where we are tonight, it is the site of so much of the when the Cristeros rebellion against the onerous oppression of the government in the 1920s. It all happened in this area, and many martyrs came out of that. 13 were beatified by Pope Benedict. Previous to that, John Paul II had beatified another 25 martyrs from this same moment, this same place. So no doubt their example is also in the forefront of so many of these people. It's not out of the realm of possibility that some of these people could be related to those martyrs.
Correct. No, I would assume that many of them
Sure.
are, because it was a period of time in the history of Mexico where the people were resilient and firm on their faith, and they never allowed the government or any kind of political party to suppress or rid them of their faith, of their religion. Mm-hmm. It's so ingrained as part of the ethos of the people in the country of Mexico. Mm-hmm. It's, you know, the Catholicism is part of the culture. It's part of their of who they are. They identify themselves as Mexicanos, Católicos firmes, firm Catholics.
Mm-hmm.
And
no, it's in the air. You know, it's not a foreign thing. It's part of the life and the culture and the everyday practice. It's amazing to see a Catholic culture like this. And our friends in Europe are emailing us, thanking us for the coverage. And you know, some of them are not in Catholic cultures. This was interesting. The Pope, apparently he was awoken this morning by a pre-dawn serenade of 24 youths from a Guadalajara church group who sang him a traditional folk song after getting as close as security would allow to the college in Leon where the Pope is staying during his visit here to Mexico.
that's interesting.
Maria Fernanda de Luna, a member of the group, said, "We sang our hearts out with all of its force. It gave us goosebumps to sing Las Mañanitas for him." Tell us about the Las Mañanitas. This is such an important part of Catholic devotion.
It is. It's Las Mañanitas are traditionally sung on Mother's Day for mothers as they wake up in the mornings, or a way of serenading a bride-to-be, or giving honor. And the Mañanitas are sung to the Virgin of Guadalupe as in pre-dawn on her feast day. And Las Mañanitas for the Holy Father or for anyone is a very beautiful expression of love, intimacy, and solidarity with him, and gratefulness from the very heart for his being with them. They feel part of, in other words, I think they want to make him part of their family. Mm-hmm. You know, they want to make him part of who they are, and so they want to welcome him in a very familial and beautiful way. I think that's Las Mañanitas is a way of truly welcoming somebody from the heart, as one of us, you know.
Yeah. And you see, look at the people they're dotting rooftops. They're on every balcony around this square.
That is incredible.
They're on fountains. They're on statues, and it's really pretty as the night falls here. The lights in the cathedral there, and gracias for your visit to Mexico. That poster that people are waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we heard strains of Cielito Lindo earlier. Again, it's such a sweet song. Of the 43.5 million Mexicans under the age of 20, 36.2 million are Catholic. It's about 83.2%, which is just under the national average. So this is a group, young people, that the Pope needs to reach out to. And I think part of this is giving them an alternative to the drugs, to the violence. That, look, let's face it, that's the fast pass to money, to power, but it's the road to ruin, as we're seeing along the border towns that you're talking about, and in many parts, not only in Mexico, in our own country, the allure of evil. And I think we'll hear Pope Benedict address some of that and probably put that in a moral framework for these young people who will no doubt be receptive to this message. You can see the sacrifice they've already made to come out here. They've been out here for hours. Some of them have camped out, and there are thousands of young people, we're told, already camped out for the Mass tomorrow morning, which is going to be sort of the high point of this visit. Beautiful. The music is really something to hear. And again, if you'd like to be part of the visit, if you have a question for us, papalvisit@ewtn.com is the email. And we're getting tons of these emails. I wish I could go through them all. It's hard to keep talking and read at the same time.
There goes that song again.
Yeah. Well, we'll let you listen to a
Lindo.
little more of it. I like to let the event breathe a bit and let you feel a part of it. So we'll take you back to the square here, Peace Square. We're awaiting the arrival of the Pope. Cielito Lindo being sung again. You know, in the United States, we have these things called flash mobs, where they take over malls or they pop up at plazas or parks and they do their little shtick. This is an organic flash mob. This is how it really looks like when it's done from the heart with such affection. And it's infectious. You can't take your eyes off of it. It's really something to watch, all these young people. And the other generations around the periphery wanting to be part of this event. And Pope Benedict is expected here any moment. He's running horribly late, which is very out of character for Pope Benedict. It being almost an hour after this event was to have begun. We have yet to see the Pope emerge into Peace Plaza, but he's here. There's a courtesy visit underway with President Calderon, and we'll see if that wraps up anytime soon. But as someone whispered to me earlier, you know, the Pope is not on his own schedule here, so. And the Sileto Lindo.
Sileto Lindo,
Sileto Lindo is my beautiful little heaven. And, you know, a song that is so traditional and so expected here in Mexico. Yeah, they're sort of running through all the greatest hits, Father Bird. Yeah. Wow, look at that shot of the cathedral.
Wow, it's beautiful.
Beautiful. Standing tall against the clouds and the storms that are coming. Such a beautiful expression to see all the people packed into the square. And like you, we are awaiting Pope Benedict's appearance. I love the people waving their guitars. There were hundreds of them who played Sileto Lindo for the Pope as he arrived. They were on a staircase to what appeared to be a church, and the Pope Mobile paused while they serenaded him. And now they've flooded into the square and they're raising these huge guitars up. Watching the Pope's visit to Mexico, this comes from Paul Perez from Riverside, California. He said, watching the Pope's visit to Mexico is bringing back memories of when I was 12, when John Paul II came to LA in 1988, and when I was in his presence at World Youth Day in 1993 at age 19. I'm 37 now, and being Catholic and telling others of my faith is a wonderful thing.
That's beautiful. That's a beautiful testimony to see, and that's what my point exactly is. People do not forget the moment when they meet the Pope. It stays with you for the rest of your life, and it's one of those moments that's ingrained in your mind and in your heart forever.
And no doubt years from now, these young people gathered here will have similar memories.
That sounds like the song, the song of the state of Guanajuato, if I'm not mistaken.
As Garrett points out from Washington, it really is a lovely blend of music we've heard so far, and no doubt we'll hear when the Pope finally arrives, because it's not only the traditional Mexican music that we've all grown accustomed to and know. You know, the hat dance music and for those who don't know the songs, you've heard these throughout your whole life. You've ever been to a nice Mexican restaurant, you hear these songs. But in addition to that, we heard Beethoven, we heard Mozart, which is clearly a tip of the hat to Pope Benedict, who is such an aficionado of Beethoven and Mozart, and known to plunk out a few of those tunes himself on the piano. So this will be something to hear once the Pope arrives. But we'll let you listen into a little more of this music. It's I'll tell you, the pre-show is as good as I think I've ever heard from a papal event. So listen in. This is EWTN's live coverage. We'll be with you in a moment. This is EWTN's continuing coverage of Pope Benedict. He is in Guanajuato, Mexico. You're seeing live footage of Peace Square there in Guanajuato. We are awaiting this important meeting. Thousands of young people already serenading him. They're waiting for the Pope to arrive. He's going to deliver a message, give his blessing to these young people, and it will no doubt be a touchstone in their lives and a moment of faith for them. We're getting emails from all over the world. A lady from Boston just sent me an email saying she remembers that moment standing in the drizzling rain awaiting John Paul II in Boston Commons and how it solidified her faith at an early age. So one doesn't ever realize the impact of these moments, I think. They're individual personal moments beyond what we can see, what the camera can pick up. And I think that's how the story goes on. And in many cases, there's no follow-up. That's the personal, changed lives and hearts that go on. And that's what the Pope is really here to do, to re-evangelize his people here and to change hearts and minds.
Correct. That's precisely the feeling that one gets when one is in the presence of the Holy Father in his or her own native country or city, as the people are experiencing here, welcoming him as part of their family in a very, very beautiful way.
And Father Jerry in Lubbock, Texas makes some good points. He reminds me that John Paul II, I said earlier that he beatified those 25 martyrs who were martyred during that period in the 20s. And he rightly points out they were not only beatified but canonized, yes. The 25 martyrs. And then there were an additional number 13 that Pope Benedict beatified in 2005. So I have to be very precise. They hold me accountable. Father Jerry, thank you for the clarification. And also, the President Calderon, he isn't himself running for office again. He's term limited. But his party, the PAN party, is running. And the wide reportage is that the PAN party is obviously trying to make the best use as they can of Calderon and his proximity to the Pope in an election year. But Calderon himself is not on the ballot. So now you know. You see the packed out square there, Peace Square, and we're as excited as they are, and a little antsy, I think, to see Pope Benedict show up here. So this courtesy meeting is taking much longer than expected. We're an hour and 17 minutes past what was to be the start of this event. So if I know our German Pope, he's probably tapping his watch at this time. He stays right on schedule, always. But lovely emails, and I'll share these with you as we go on. The email is papalvisit@ewtn.com, and I hope you'll stay tuned. In the days ahead, the Pope will be going to Cuba. This is going to be another mammoth visit, and the impact of this, you really can't tell in the moment. You have to wait in history to see what happens. Mm-hmm. The Church taking that long view, as it often does. What a moment.
And as night falls, you see the colors, the beautiful colors, the light, just reflected upon the church there in the main square. It's beautiful.
Guanajuato, beautiful spot. And of course, many of the priests, the rallying cry of the Cristeros was "Viva Cristo Rey," long live Christ the King. And this was, in many cases, their last words. Of course, Miguel Pro was the saint. He was just one of many priests who were martyred. Some of our email correspondents, Alicia writes from Houston about San Miguel de la Mora, a priest of Colima, who was a martyr in 1927. He also said, Viva Cristo Rey. And this whole area is really charged with the blood of the martyrs and their witness. And so that should be a backdrop to you and inform your thinking a little bit as you watch this play out, because these, in many cases, are the relatives, in some cases, the descendants of those martyrs.
And Cristo Rey represents for the people of Mexico that their faith. Christ is their king, the king of the universe. He is the one who rules above any political party, and so this was their banner cry, as it would be during the Cristero movement. And now it's been transformed. I think, particularly in my area, when we have the Feast of Christ the King. I was in a parish named Christ the King. We processed with the Christ the King throughout the neighborhood as a way of promoting our faith, and so Christ the King has become more, promoting the Catholic faith in a very, very particular way in each of the regions that one is in, to really be proud of our heritage, our faith as Hispanics, whether it's in Mexico or Mexican Americans of Hispanic descent.
No, I love the cultural expression as you travel the world, as you see people react in their own way with their own traditions. And again, it underscores the universal nature of the Church, the beloved nature of the Holy Father, and his true connection to people in all these lands, in all these tongues, with all their personal habits and culinary fixations, and yet they all come out and show their love with that stamp that is at once personal and universal. And one of the things I love, it's one of the gifts of being in this job and in this seat for 15 years, is that you get to be a part of that and see it up close and share it with so many people around the world, not only in your own country, but people in Ireland, in Hawaii, in Tobago, people who are writing us from Mexico, watching online. It really is interesting to see the reach of not only the Holy Father, but of this network after, in its 30th year. Oh, it's
it's truly special. You're gifted in being part of that. That's
I don't know
very
about
important.
gifted. The gifted part I don't know about, but it is a gift for me to be a part of it, and we're delighted to have you along. We're going to take a very quick break here, and we are awaiting the Pope's arrival. He is in this very important city. It's in the very center of Mexico, and the first major public event of his trip here. Much more of Pope Benedict XVI in Mexico when our coverage continues. Stay right there. Pope Benedict has arrived. We take you now to the square in León, Peace Square. Here's Pope Benedict XVI. I am happy to be able to meet with you, the Pope is saying, and of course, it's difficult for him to get words out with this crowd.
Estoy contento de poderlos encontrar y ver sus rostros alegres llenando esta bella plaza.
I'm happy to be able to greet you and see your smiling faces as you fill this beautiful square. You have a very special place in the Pope's heart. And a cheer goes up. And in these moments, I would like all the children of Mexico to know this. Especially those who have to bear the burden of suffering, abandonment,
a causa de
violence,
sequía
or
se ha
hunger,
dejado sentir fuertemente en algunas regiones.
which in recent months,
Gracias por este encuentro de fe,
because of
por la
drought,
presencia
has
festiva
made itself
y
strongly felt in
regocijo
some
que han expresado con
regions.
los cantos.
I'm grateful for
Pues
this
estamos
encounter of
llenos de
faith
júbilo.
and for the
Eso es
festive and joyful
importante.
presence expressed in
Dios
song.
quiere que seamos siempre felices. Él nos conoce y nos ama.
Today we are full of jubilation, and this is important. God wants us to be happy always. He knows us and He loves us. If we allow the love of Christ to change our heart, then we can change the world. This is the secret of authentic happiness.
Si dejamos que el amor de Cristo cambie nuestro corazón, entonces nosotros podemos cambiar el mundo.
If we allow the love of Christ to change our heart, then we can change the world.
Ese es el secreto de la auténtica felicidad.
This is the
Este
secret of
lugar
authentic
en el que
happiness.
nos hallamos tiene un nombre.
This place where we
Expresa el anhelo
stand today has a
presente
name,
en el corazón de
which
todos los
expresses the
pueblos.
yearning present in
La
the heart of
paz.
each and every person. La paz, peace.
Un don que proviene de lo alto. La paz está con ustedes.
This is a gift which
Son
comes
las
from on
palabras
high.
del Señor resucitado.
Peace be with
Las
you.
oímos en cada misa y hoy resuenan de nuevo aquí.
These
con
are the
la
words of the
esperanza
risen
que
Lord.
cada uno
We
se
hear them during
transforme en
each Mass, and
sembrador
today
y mensajero
they resound
de esa
anew in
paz
this
para
place,
que Cristo
with the
entregó su
hope
vida.
that each one of you
El
will
discípulo
be
de Jesús
transformed,
no responde al mal con mal,
become a sower
sino
and
que
messenger
siempre
of that
instrumento del
peace
bien,
for which Christ
heraldo
offered
del
His life.
perdón, portador de alegría,
The disciple
servidor
of
de la
Jesus does not
unidad.
respond to evil
Él
with
quiere
evil,
escribir en
but is
cada una
always
de
an
esas
instrument
vidas
of good
una
instead,
historia de
a herald
amistad.
of pardon, a bearer of
Ténganlo,
happiness,
pues,
a
como el mejor
servant
de
of
sus
unity.
amigos. Él no se cansará
He
de
wishes to
decirles
write
que
in
amen
each of
siempre a
your
todos
lives
y
a
hagan
story of
el
friendship.
bien. Esto escucharán si procuran en todo
Hold on
momento
to him.
un trato frecuente
Then,
con él.
as the
les
best of
ayudará
friends,
aún en las
He will never
situaciones
tire of
más
speaking to
difíciles.
those who always love and
He
who do
venido
good.
para que sientan mi, he
This you
venido
will hear if
para
you
que
strive
sientan mi
in each
afecto.
moment to be with Him, who will help you in more difficult situations. Pope Benedict being interrupted by chants.
As he says, I came so that you can feel my affection
I have
for
come
you.
that you may know my affection.
Right.
And you saw behind him Cardinal
Cada uno-
Bertone, the Secretary of State on the left, President Calderon on the right
Cada
of the
uno
Pope.
de
There over his
nosotros
shoulder.
de ustedes es un regalo de
Each
Dios
one of
para
you is a
México
gift of
y
God
para el
to
mundo.
Mexico and to the world. Oh, we lost the feed there. But I have the address, so I'll continue here and share with you what the Holy Father is saying while we reestablish the feed. Your family, the church, your school. I don't know why we're on that camera. Your family, the church, your school, and those who have responsibility in society must work together to ensure that you receive a better world as your inheritance without jealousies and divisions.
Pueden vivir
Here's
en
the Holy
paz
Father once
y
more.
mirar al futuro con
That is why I
confianza.
wish to lift up my voice, inviting
Ustedes, mis
everyone to
pequeños
protect and to
amigos,
care for children,
no
so that
están
nothing may
solos.
extinguish their smile, but that they may live in peace and look to a future with confidence. You, my dear young friends, are not alone. And again, a cry goes out.
Cuentan con la ayuda de Cristo y de su iglesia para
You can
llevar un
count on the
estilo de
help of
vida
the church,
cristiano.
of Christ and His
Participen en la
church,
misa del
in order to
domingo,
live a Christian
en la
lifestyle.
catequesis,
Participate
en
in
algún
Sunday
grupo de
Mass, in
apostolado,
catechesis,
buscando
in
lugares de
apostolic
oración
works, looking
fraternidad
for
y
occasions
caridad.
of prayer,
Eso mismo
fraternity
vieron los
and
beatos
charity.
Cristóbal, Antonio Juan,
Blessed
los niños mártires
Cristobal,
de
Antonio, and
Tlaxcala,
Juan,
que conociendo
the
a
child
Jesús
martyrs of
en
Tlaxcala,
tiempos de la primera
lived this way.
evangelización de México,
And knowing Jesus,
descubrieron
during the
que
time
no
of the
había tesoro
initial
más grande
evangelization of
que
Mexico,
él.
they discovered
Eran niños
that there
como
is no
ustedes,
greater treasure
y de ellos
than he.
podemos aprender que no hay edad para amar
They were
y
children like
servir.
you, and from them
Quisiera
we can
quedarme
learn
más
that
tiempo
we are
con
never too
ustedes.
young to love and serve.
He wants to stay. He wish he could stay longer with him. That's beautiful. And they want him to stay longer with him.
Pero
That's beautiful.
Pero ya debo irme en la oración. Seguiremos
Now I have to
en
go
la oración, seguiremos
prayer.
juntos.
We will be together.
Los invito
However, how I would like to spend more time with you, but the
Los
time has
invito,
already come
pues,
for me to go.
a
We will
rezar
remain close in prayer.
continuamente.
So I
También
invite
en
you to
casa,
pray
así
continually,
experimentarán la alegría
even in your homes.
de hablar con Dios en
In
familia.
this way, you will experience
Recen
the
por
happiness
todos.
of speaking
También
about
por
God
mí.
with your families. Pray for everyone and also for me.
Yes.
And there goes the cry of affirmation. I don't think he has to worry about them
Yo-
praying for him.
Rezaré por ustedes.
I will pray for all of you.
Yo rezaré por ustedes
I will pray for all of you
para que México sea un
so that
hogar
Mexico may
en
be
el
a
que
place
todos sus hijos
in which
vivan
everyone
con serenidad
can live in
y
serenity
armonía.
and
Los
harmony.
bendigo de corazón.
I bless
Les
all of
pido.
you from my heart.
Y les pido que lleven el cariño
And I ask
y la
you to bring the
bendición del
affection and
Papa
blessings
a
of the
sus
Pope
padres
to your
y
parents,
hermanos, así como a
brothers
sus
and
demás seres
sisters,
queridos.
and
Que
other
la
loved
Virgen
ones.
vos acompañe.
May the Virgin accompany you.
Muchas gracias, muchos mis pequeños amigos. A
Thank
esa
you
bendición.
very much, my young dear friends. The Pope is reacting to something with, I think the young people of, oh look, they're releasing doves.
the doves. That's a beautiful.
And you heard the Holy Father, and there goes the confetti bombs. It's really, wow, the
Very
confetti
expressive
cannon's
of-
going off. Look at this.
Of joy to be with the Holy Father. And
Now
there goes
the Pope is giving his blessing,
his blessing upon all who are present.
not only to those in the square, but those watching, looking in all around the world. Look at the young
He's
people
surrounded by
surrounding.
young people. He's so, you can see that he that gives him energy. You can see that big smile and joy on his face, being surrounded by so many children. It's beautiful. They are the future.
Beautiful. The Pope making his way in after this event. And these young people are so excited to be here with the Pope and have had this moment with him. And a really lovely and important message, again, targeting the concerns of the young people. Oh, he's making his way here through a throng of people. The city of León really put on a beautiful welcome for the Holy Father.
Oh, absolutely.
Listen to
You can
him
hear the
sing.
music.
Oh, the Ode to Joy. An appropriate song to end this meeting with young people.
That is beautiful.
We'll let you listen into it for just a moment, then we'll wrap up. We'll talk a little about what the Pope said and its implications and preview tomorrow's visit.
da una bendición a la familia.
Ellos son los padres de uno de mis colaboradores que falleció en un accidente aéreo y ella es su esposa.
The Pope making his way out, and President Calderon is introducing him to various people here as he makes his way
¿Puede dar una bendición, Santo Padre?
from the town square in Leon, Peace Plaza. I had a lovely email from a pastor, and I'm trying to find it. It's hard. We've got so many emails that come.
Benedicto, mexicano, ya eres mexicano. Now you are Mexican. You are one of us. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful expression of love and affection for the Holy Father. Ya eres mexicano. Now you are Mexican.
Uh-huh. They call John Paul the Pope of Mexico. 5 visits he made, and now the Pope on his first to Mexico as Pope. He's been here before as cardinal. Here it is, Father Steve Velenga. I'm a pastor of St. Mary's Catholic Church in Painesville, Ohio. My Mexican parishioners are all from Guanajuato. And I'm so grateful to EWTN for the coverage of the Pope's visit. I know that my parishioners are all glued to the coverage with their hearts in Leon, spiritually in Peace Square with Pope Benedict. Many talked of going just to be there for the visit. Thanks again for the spiritual solidarity for the Mexican Catholics who are in the United States with the Pope at this time.
And we're so happy to bring this to them. So many people, we forget that there are so many immigrants here in our country from Mexico, and particularly from the state of Guanajuato, who are able to be there because of the coverage that we have in EWTN. It's a very special celebration for them too, and I'm sure that their hearts are there in Mexico as the Holy Father is truly making his presence there in their beloved Guanajuato and their beloved Mexico, you know. And that's also
Beautiful.
a sign of hope for the immigrants, I think, in some ways,
Yep.
as they see this.
These choirs and this music is among the most beautiful and certainly heartfelt
And
that
colorful.
I've witnessed. Oh no, and color coordinated. Now that's something you never see. An amazing display of love and affection, and we have to say, musicianship. It's hard to say, Pasal, for these young people. Look at that. They're still singing and waving their flags here in Peace Plaza in Leon, in the state of Guanajuato tonight. And we're getting so many nice notes from people who are joining in spiritually. People in Ireland, it's 2:20 a.m. in Ireland, and they're watching. Some people are saying it's breathtaking coverage. It leaves us breathless, just magnificent. We didn't expect this. Really lovely comments. Well, we're delighted to have brought it to you in its entirety and to give you a front row seat. You know, I often tell people, it is wonderful to travel with the Holy Father and be there in person. Though I think, having done so many of these trips in person, you see so much more on television, because there are multiple cameras and you're right there up close. You really are experiencing it in a way that even when you're present, you're often so removed from the center of the action that it's hard to, you know, it becomes more of a happening where you're getting it by proximity. But to be up close and to see the expressions and each moment is a rare gift, and we're privileged and pleased to bring it to you. And this is only the beginning, ladies and gentlemen. In the days ahead, the Pope will have a Mass tomorrow. He'll still be here in Guanajuato. There'll be the major Mass here. Then he makes his way to Vespers with his bishops tomorrow evening. We'll bring you that in its entirety. Moving on to the departure to Cuba. And then all of those festivities, he visits the El Cobre Shrine, the shrine of Our Lady of Charity, who's the patroness of Cuba, with deep ties, of course, to so many friends in Miami, Chicago, the Cuban community spread throughout this diaspora. They will no doubt be there spiritually following all of this.
And no doubt they will feel the same feeling that all the people from Mexico that are in the United States, immigrants and people of Mexican descent, feel as the Pope, his presence is in Mexico, that the people from Cuba will also feel a very special feeling as the Pope is celebrating Mass and greeting the people of their beloved Cuba.
This was really something. And we leave you with these images and sounds of the young people swaying in time with this beautiful music. And we end almost where we began, with the effusive songs of praise and joy and love. What an event. What a start to this coverage and this visit to Mexico. Nightfall has settled here, but the light is blazing in the hearts of so many people present in this square, and so many of you I know looking in from around the world. And that concludes our coverage. I almost hate to break away. It's hard to pull away from this. It's so beautiful, and the joy is infectious as you watch this. Monsignor, your final thoughts on some of the words the Pope shared with these young people tonight. He made a particular mention of those children who are suffering, abandoned, suffering violence and hunger and from the drought. And he says they have to allow the love of Christ to change their hearts, then they can change the world. How do you think that message was received there?
I think it was received very, very well. I think that is precisely the message of the gospel. It is a message of hope. That despite of our sufferings, we overcome our sufferings through our faith in Christ and our journey of faith that will take us to the second coming, when Christ will come again and will wipe away every tear and take away all suffering from all of us. So I think that in itself, the message of hope is so special, and so it's something that the children and the people there will never forget for the rest of their lives.
Well, just the moment, the song, the love, I mean, the spiritual charge in the air that we felt via these cameras, one can only imagine being in the square at that moment and taking this in the first person.
It's a spiritual moment.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Monsignor Diaz, thank you so much for being with us. And you can be with us again tomorrow. That concludes our coverage for now. But join us Sunday morning at 10:45 a.m. for the solemn Papal Mass from Bicentennial Park in León. We'll go back to León, Mexico. And I'll be joined once again by Monsignor Bert Diaz of the Diocese of Brownsville, Texas. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, thanks for joining us. Much more papal coverage ahead. Stay with us as Pope Benedict continues his trip through Mexico and on to Cuba. Good night for now. See you soon. Bye now.